Morning everyone. So yung next na i-report ko is encryption. So encryption is the conversion of data into secret code for storage in database and transmission over networks. So yung encryption process, converting of information siya into a code, especially to prevent authorized access. Yung ginagamit yung encryption, syempre to protect sensitive information or important information transmitted online. So, yung sa encryption, the sender uses an encryption algorithm to convert the original message into a coded equivalent. At receiving end, the ciphertext is decrypted back into clear text. So, yung dito, yung clear message, convert natin siya in a code, which is called ciphertext. And then, pag na-receive na ng receiver yung ciphertext, kailangan namang i-decode back into the clear text. So, next, the earliest encryption method is called the Caesar cipher, which Julius Caesar is said to have used to send coded message to his generals in the field. So, yung Caesar cipher, meron siyang two fundamental components, which is key and algorithm. Then, yung key is a mathematical value that the sender selects. Next, algorithm is the procedure of shifting each letter in the clear text message the number of position that the key value indicates. So, example dito is key value plus 3 would shift each letter 3 places to the right, meaning yung letter A in clear text would be represented as letter D in ciphertext message. Then yung receiver naman ng ciphertext message, i-reverse na yung process to decode and recreates the clear text. So ang gagawin dito is shifting ciphertext letter 3 places to the left para ma-decode yung ciphertext message. So, dapat dito, alam ng both sender at receiver yung key. Next naman, modern day encryption algorithms, however, are far more complex. And encryption keys may be up to 128 bits in length. The more bits in the key, the stronger encryption method. Today, nothing less than 128-bit algorithms are considered truly secure. So two commonly used methods of encryption are private key and public key. So yung first is yung private key encryption. Advanced Encryption Standard AES is a 128-bit encryption technique that has become a US government standard for private key encryption. The AES algorithm uses a single key known to both the sender and the receiver of the message. So, ito yung illustration niya. To encode the message daw, so clear text, kailangan the sender provides encryption algorithm with a key, which is used to produce a ciphertext. The message enters the communication channel and is transmitted to the receiver's location where it is stored. So, syempre, the receiver decodes the message with a decryption program that is uses to the same key the sender employs. Triple DS encryption is an enhancement to an older encryption technique called data encryption standard. Triple DS provides considerably improved security over most single encryption techniques. So, two forms of triple DS encryption are EEE3 and EDE3. So, yung EEE3 uses 3 different keys to encrypt the message 3 times. So, dito, gumagamit tayo ng tatlong magkakaibang key para ma-encrypt yung message 3 times. And then yung EDE3 uses one key to encrypt the message, second key is to decode it, and the third key is used to encrypt the garbled message. So, ito siya. Ito din yung illustration niya. Yung EE3 technique and then EDE3 technique. So, yun nga, di ba? Yung sa may EE3 technique, sinabi ko naman kanina na gumagamit sila ng tatlong magkakaibang key para ma-encrypt yung message 3 times. And then, yung EDE3 technique, so yung first key, yun, used to encrypt program. And then, yung second key naman, used to decode. So, yun nga, yung the resulting message is garbled message. Because the key used for decoding is different from the one that encrypted. So, yun, garbled message daw siya kasi nga magkaiba yung ginamit na key sa decoding program at saka sa encryption program. And then, yung third key naman, used to encrypt the garbled message. So, yun, yung third key, used to encrypt the garbled message. So, yun, the use of multiple keys greatly reduces the chances of breaking the cipher. Triple DS encryption is thought to be very secure, and major banks use it to transmit transactions. So, next, all private key techniques have a common problem. So, sinabi dito na, the more individuals who to need the key, the greater the probability of it falling into the wrong hands. If a perpetrator discovers the key, he or she can intercept and decipher coded message. Therefore, encrypting data that are to be transmitted among large numbers of relative strangers, such as internet transaction between business and customers, requires a different approach. So, yung sinabi na ang solution daw doon is the public key encryption. So, public key encryption uses two different keys, one for encoding message and the other for decoding them. Each recipient has a private key that is kept secret and a public key that is published. So, yun. Ito yung public key encryption. Yung illustration niya. So, the sender of a message uses the receiver's public key to encrypt the message. The receiver then uses his or her private key to decode the message. And then, users never need to share their private keys to decrypt message, thus reducing the likelihood that they fall into the hands of a criminal. So, dito, ito yung illustration niya. Then, so based on my research, ito yung pinagkaiba ng public key and ng private key. So, yung private key sa algorithm, yun, used to both encrypt and decrypt the data and is shared between the sender and receiver of encrypt data. So, pag public key naman, is only used to encrypt data and to decrypt the data. The private key is used and is shared. So, pagdating sa performance, yun, the private key mechanism is faster, while the public key mechanism is slower. So, when it comes to secret, the private key is kept secret and not public to anyone apart from the sender and receiver, while in public key is free to use and the private key is kept secret only. So, when it comes to type, the private key mechanism is called symmetric, being a single key between two parties, while public key mechanism is called asymmetric, being two keys for different purposes. When it comes to sharing naman, the private key is to be shared between two parties, while in public key can be used by anyone, but the private key is to be shared between two only. So yun, targets, performance testing checks the reliability, scalability, and speed of the system, while in public key, load testing checks the sustainability of the system. So, yung RSA is a highly secure public key cryptography method. This method is, however, computationally intensive and much slower than standard DES encryption. Sometimes, both DES and RSA are used together in what is called a digital envelope. The actual message is encrypted using DES to provide the fastest decoding. The DES private key needed to decrypt the message is encrypted using RSA and transmitted along with the message. The receiver first decodes the AES key, which is then used to decode the message. So, yung RSA, parang method siya ng cryptography na inaalaw lang na maka-access ng info is yung sender and receiver. So, no other persons ang pwedeng maka-access ng information na yon. Kasi nga, di ba, may mga authorized person lang na pwedeng mag-access sa mga information or whatsoever. So, dito sa RSA, sender at receiver lang yung pwedeng mag-access. Next, digital signatures. Digital signatures is electronic authentication that cannot be forged. It ensures that the message or document that the sender transmitted was not tampered with after the signature was applied. So, ito yung illustration niya. So, the sender uses a one-way hashing algorithm to calculate a digest of the text message. The digest is the mathematical value calculated from the text content of the message. The digest is then encrypted using the sender's private key to produce the digital signature. Next, the digital signature and the text message are encrypted using the receiver's public key and transmitted to the receiver. At the receiving end, the message is decrypted using the receiver's private key to produce the digital signature and the clear text version of the message. The receiver then uses the sender's public key to decrypt the digital signal to produce the digest. Finally, the receiver recalculates the digest from the clear text using the original hashing algorithm and compares this to the decoded digest. If the message is authentic, the two digest value will match. If even a single character of the message was changed in transmission, the digest figures will not be equal. So, yung digital signature, ano lang siya? Type siya ng electronic signature that encrypts documents with digital codes that are particularly difficult to duplicate.
So, yung digital certificate, the aforementioned process proves that the message received was not tampered with during transmission. It does not prove, however, that the sender is who he or she claims to be. The sender could be an impersonator. Verifying the sender's identity requires a digital certificate, which is issued by a trusted third party called a certification authority. So, yung digital certificate, electronic password siya that allows a person, organization to exchange data securely over the internet using the public key infrastructure. Then, a digital certificate is used in conjunction with a public key encryption system to authenticate the sender of a message. The process for certification varies depending on the level of certification desired. It involves establishing one's identity with the formal documents, such as a driver license, notarization, and fingerprints, and proving one's ownership of the public key. After verifying the owner's identity, the certification authority creates the certification, which includes the owner's policy key and other data that the CA has digitally signed. The digital certificate is transmitted with the encrypted message to authenticate the sender. The receiver uses the CA's public key, which is widely publicized, to decrypt the sender's public key attached to the message. The sender's public key is then used to decrypt the message. Because public key encryption is central to digital authentication, public key management becomes an important internal control issue. So ito, public infrastructure constitute the policies and procedures for administering this activity. So, PKI system consists of, first, a certification authority that issues and revokes digital certificates. Second, a registration authority that verifies the identity of certificate applicants. The process varies depending on the level of certification desired. It involves establishing one's identity with formal documents such as driver's license, notarization, fingerprints, and proving one's ownership of the public key. The third one is a certification repository, which is a publicly accessible database that contains current information about current certificates and a certification revocation list of certificates that have been revoked and the reasons for revocation. So, next naman, message sequence numbering. So, dito, an intruder in the communication channel may attempt to delete a message from a stream of messages, changes the order of messages received, or duplicate a message. So, through message sequence number, a sequence number is inserted in each message, and any such attempt will become apparent at the receiving end. Next naman, message transaction log. An intruder may successfully penetrate the system by trying different password and user ID communication. So dito sa message transaction log, all incoming and outgoing messages as well as attempted access should be recorded in message transaction log. Yun, the log should recorded, syempre, the user ID, the time of the access, and the terminal location or telephone number from which the access originated. Next is request response technique. An intruder may attempt to prevent or delay the receipt of a message from the sender. When sender and receivers are not in constant contact, the receiver may not know if the communications channel has been interrupted and that message have been diverted. So, using request response technique, a control message from the sender and a response from the receiver are sent at periodic, synchronized intervals. The timing of the message should follow a random pattern that will be difficult for the intruder to determine and circumvent. Last one is the callback devices. So, yung callback devices requires the dial-in user to enter a password and be identified. The system then breaks the connection to perform user authentication. Yan. If the caller is authorized, the callback device dials the caller's number to establish a new connection. This restricts access to authorized terminals or telephone numbers and prevent an intruder masquerading a legitimate user. So, dito, ano lang siya, parang bago mo i-dial, need mo munang kailangan mo munang mag-enter ng password. So, kung authorized person ka, magre-ring siya. Pero kung hindi naman, maybe ma-block ka. Parang ganun lang yun. And then, next one is the audit objectives relating to subversive threats. The auditor's objective is to verify the security and integrity of financial transactions by determining that network controls, first, syempre, can prevent and detect illegal access to both internally and from the internet. Second, will render useless any data that a perpetrator successfully captures. And last, are sufficient to preserve the integrity and physical security of data connected to the network. Next one, audit procedures relating to subversive threats. Yun. To achieve this control objective, the auditor may perform the following test of controls. First, review the adequacy of the firewall in achieving the proper balance between control and convenience based on the organization's business objectives and potential risk. So, ito, criteria for assessing the firewall effectiveness include, first is the flexibility. So, yun, syempre yung firewall should be flexible enough to accommodate new services as the security needs of the organization change. Next, proxy services. So, proxy application should be in place to provide explicit user authentication to sensitive services, applications, and data. Next naman is yung filtering. So, syempre, strong filtering technique should be designed to deny all services that are not explicitly permitted. So, yun. In other words, firewall should specify only those services the user is permitted to access rather than specifying the services that are denied. Next is segregation of system. Systems that do not require public access should be segregated from the internet. And then, audit tools. Firewall should provide a thorough set of audit and logging tools that identify and record suspicious activity. Then last is probe for weaknesses. Yun. To validate security, the auditor should periodically probe the firewall for weaknesses just as a computer internet backer would do. A number of software products are currently available for identifying security weakness. So, yung second naman is verify that an intrusion prevention system or IPS with deep packet inspection or DPI is in place for organizations that are vulnerable to DDoS attacks such as financial institution. So, yung third one is review security procedures governing the administration of data encryption keys. Fourth, verifying the encryption process by transmitting a test message and examining the contents at various points along the channels between the sending and receiving locations. Fifth, review the message transaction logs to verify that all messages were received in their proper sequence. And then last, test the operation of the callback feature by placing an unauthorized call from outside the installation. So, yung next po na magre-report is si Blessy Jane Viernes.
So, good afternoon guys. Next is controlling risk from equipment failure. Dito, malalaman kung paano makakontrol yung mga possible risk na may encounter if may equipment failure na nangyari. One of the example or types of equipment failure is yung line errors. The most common problem in data communications is data loss due to line error. The bit structure of the message can be corrupted through noise on the communication lines. So yung noise, it is made up of random signals na nag-interfere sa message signal when they reach a certain level. Yung causes ng random signal na to is yung electric motors, atmospheric conditions, faulty wiring, defective components and equipment, or noise spilling over from an adjacent communication channel. So, pag hindi na-detect yung mga line errors na to, it may cause changes to transmitted data and can be catastrophic or disaster to the firm. So, example, sa case ng database active program, yung presence ng line error is nagre-result sa incorrect transaction. There are two techniques that are commonly used to detect and correct such data errors before they are being processed. First is echo check. It involves the receiver of the message returning the message to the sender. So, dito sa echo check, dine-determine yung integrity of transmission of data and kino-compare yung received data with originally transmitted data. So, if there is discrepancy between the return message and the original data, ibig sabihin, there is a transmission error na nangyari which will result to the message to the transmitted. This technique reduces by 1/2 throughput over communication channels. Using full duplex channels, which allow both parties to transmit and receive simultaneously, can increase throughput. Another technique used to detect and correct such data errors is the parity check. It incorporates an extra bit or the parity bit into the structure of a bit string when it's created or transmitted. So, yung parity check is created para ma-detect or ma-eliminate yung data communication error. Dito, makikita natin sa figure 3.8 is yung process kung paano dinedetect or binablock yung mga data error na nai-encounter. So, itong mga numbers na 0 and 1, it is called the parity. Ito yung tinatawag na parity bits. And then, nadidetermine lang or nadidetect lang yung error at the end of the message or at the receiving end. Audit objectives relating to equipment failure. So, dito, yung auditor is bine-verify niya yung integrity ng electronic commerce transaction by determining that yung mga controls na nilagay is kayang mag-detect and mag-correct ng message loss dahil sa equipment failure. So, if yung kanina is about audit objectives relating to equipment failure, in which they determine if the controls are in place to detect and correct message loss due to equipment failure, dito naman sa audit procedures relating to equipment failure, the auditor is selecting a sample messages form from the transaction log and ina-examine niya yon. Then, bine-verify niya if yung mga corrupted messages ba is successfully retransmitted. So, let's proceed to auditing electronic data interchange or EDI. To coordinate sales and production operations and to maintain an uninterrupted flow of raw materials, many organizations enter into a trading partner agreement with their suppliers and customers. This agreement is the foundation for the fully automated business process called electronic data interchange. So, yung EDI is a business information using a standardized format in which it allows one company to send information to another company electronically rather than with the use of papers, or as simple as an exchange of information electronically between two companies. The definition reveals several important features of EDI. First, EDI is an inter-organization endeavor, which means the firm does not engage in EDI on its own. Second, the information systems of the trading partners automatically process the transaction. So, yung mga business that are engaged in electronic exchange of information is called trading partners. So, sa EDI environment, there are no human intermediaries na nag-a-approve or nag-authorize sa transactions because yung authorizations, mutual obligation, and business practices that apply to transactions are all specified na in advance under the trading partner agreement. Third, transaction information is transmitted in a standardized format. Dito, inaalaw ng firm yung different internal system which can exchange information and do business. Next is EDI standards. Key to EDI success is the use of a standard format for messaging between the similar systems. Over the years, both in the United States and internationally, a number of formats have been proposed. The standard in the United States is the American National Standard Institute's format. So dito, yung EDI standards are mga requirements for the format and content of EDI business documents. Then dito, dinidetermine and kinokorek yung order of location and units of data ng EDI document. Benefits of EDI. EDI has made considerable inroads in a number of industries, including automotive, groceries, retail, healthcare, and electronics. So the following are some EDI cost savings that justify the approach. First is yung data keying. EDI reduces or even eliminates the need for data entry. So yung EDI or isa sa mga benefits ng EDI is nire-reduce niya or nilelesen niya yung multiple data entry. Another benefits of EDI is yung error reduction. Firms using EDI see reductions in data keying errors, human interpretation and classification errors, and filing or lost document errors. So dito sa error reduction, mas mabilis ma-identify ng EDI yung mga errors na nag-a-arise every time na may mga transaction. Next is reduction of paper. The use of electronic envelopes and documents drastically reduces the paper forms in the system. So yun nga, one of the most important benefits ng electronic data interchange is nare-reduce niya yung use ng papers kasi more on electronic envelopes and documents yung ginagamit to send information to another company. Postage. Dito, yung mailed documents are replaced with much cheaper data transmission. Next, automated procedures. EDI automates manual activities associated with purchasing, sales order processing, cash disbursement, and cash receipts. Di ba nga sa EDI, no human intermediaries involved. So, more on computer software siya. Kaya mas napapadali yung pag-record ng data when it comes to purchasing, pagpaprocess ng sales order, and cash disbursement at cash receipts. Next is inventory reduction. By ordering directly as needed from vendors, EDI reduces the lag time that promotes inventory accumulation. Proceed naman tayo sa financial EBI. Using electronic funds transfer or EFT for cash disbursement and cash receipts processing, it is more complicated than using EBI for purchasing and selling activities. EFT requires intermediary banks between trading partners. So, kung yung EDI is process of allowing one company to send information to another company, ito namang financial EDI is electronic transfer of payments or payment-related information and other financial document in a standardized or machine-readable format. The arrangement between trading partners and electronic fund transfer are shown in this figure. So, dito, yung buyer's EDI system or yung purchasing company receives the purchase invoices and automatically approves them for payment. So, pagdating ng payment date, the buyer's system automatically makes an EFT to its originating bank. Yung originating bank removes funds from the buyer's account and transmit them electronically to the automatic clearinghouse bank. So pagdating niya sa automatic clearinghouse banks, which is nagkikarry ng accounts for its member banks, tira-transfer niya yung funds from the OBK or yung originating bank to the receiving bank ng selling company, which in turn applies the funds to the seller's account. ADI controls. The absence of human interventions in the data process presents a unique twist to traditional control problems, including ensuring that transactions are authorized and valid, preventing unauthorized access to data files, and maintaining an audit trail of transactions. Diba nga sa ADI, there is no human intervention na nangyayari kasi more on computer software or system yung nagpa-process or nag-authorize ng different transactions or different activities. So, kaya may ADI controls is to prevent or para ma-ensure na yung mga transactions are authorized and valid and ma-prevent yung unauthorized access to data file. May mga techniques na ginagamit to deal with these issues. Una, yung transaction authorization and validation. Both the customers and the supplier must establish that the transaction being processed is to or from a valid trading partner and is authorized. This can be accomplished at 3 points in the process. Una, some VANs or yung value-added networks have the capability of validating password and user ID codes for the vendor by matching this against valid customer files. So, yung mga customer is may kanya-kanyang user ID codes and password. Dito, minamatch ng VAN yung user ID codes ng customer if sa valid customer file. And then, kapag hindi siya nag-match, automatic na i-reject ng VAN yung unauthorized trading partner transaction bago pa man nila ma-reach yung vendor system. Number 2, before being converted, the translation software can validate the trading partner's ID and password against the validation file in the firm's database. And number 3, before processing, the trading partner's application software references the valid customer and vendor's file to validate the transactions. Dito sa access control, to function smoothly, EDI trading partner must permit a degree of access to private data files that will be forbidden in a traditional environment. The trading partner agreement will determine the degree of access control in place. For example, it may permit the customer system to access the vendor's inventory files to determine if inventories are available. Also, trading partners may agree that the prices and the purchase order will be binding on both parties. The customer must therefore periodically access the vendor's price list file to keep pricing information current. So, to guard this unauthorized access, each company must establish valid vendor and customer files. Inquiries against databases can thus be validated and unauthorized attempts at access can be rejected. User authority tables can also be established which specify the degree of access a trading partner is allowed. For example, the partner may be authorized to read inventory or pricing data but not change values. So dito sa access control, yung mga trading partners is pwede nilang ma-access yung mga private data file pero may limitations. So, katulad nga ng example dito, sabi niya, yung partner daw may be authorized to read the inventory or pricing data, pero hindi siya allowed na i-change yung values. So, yung next reporter is si Angelica Mangil.